I heard the mailbox open a second time, after the mail carrier had already driven away. Then, right outside my bedroom window, clear as day, I heard his voice, doing the impression he used to do to mock my mom. "You're so smart." I ran outside, nobody there. The mailbox was empty. It had been 6 years since I'd left him, and I already knew this was never going to be over until I said something. This story was shared on a popular online forum. I've changed the names. I met Charlie through a large group of mutual friends when I was 18 and he was 22. We had mutual friends going back to high school, a world I never really belonged to. I spent most of those years in isolation. So when I finally found a social circle as an adult, I was grateful. Maybe too grateful. I think Charlie saw that in me immediately. Outcast, friendly but awkward, eager to please. He started mirroring me almost right away. A dear friend, Missy, tried to warn me. She said Charlie was changing after meeting me, claiming political views he'd never held before, adopting my interests out of nowhere. I should have listened to her. At the time, I was just thrilled that anyone had a crush on me at all. We messaged online, followed each other on social media, and through that he learned everything: my interests, my values, my language. And he used all of it. He learned how to speak the language of social justice and use it to manipulate, isolate, and control me. He had this line: "My dad raised me that the strong must protect the sweet. I'm the strong one, and you're the sweet one. I'll protect you." He said it with such conviction, like he meant every word. At 18, I believed him. He also told me he used to track down local white supremacists, follow them home, and beat them up to stop them from organizing. I didn't agree with the method. But the idea that someone would actually do something about hate, that felt new and exciting and important to me at the time. I don't admire that kind of thing anymore. About a year before I started dating Charlie, I'd had a brief relationship with someone else from the group, a guy I'll call Scott. 2 months. A rebound after he'd gone through a breakup and a sudden loss. It ended fast and it hurt. Charlie had it out for Scott in a way I never fully understood. He told me Scott had a history of ignoring consent with his girlfriends and described specific things that felt familiar to my own experience, even though I had consented. He put thoughts in my head I hadn't had before. So I made a call-out post. I used Scott's full name and called him a rapist, even though that was never my story to tell. Scott moved across the country not long after. Charlie didn't tell me to make that post, but I would never have done it if he hadn't been in my ear. I take full responsibility for the damage I caused, and I'm deeply ashamed to say that was only the beginning of me becoming his instrument. After almost a year of this, I asked Charlie out. He said, and I can still hear it, "Are you sure? I'm 4 years older than you. I don't want there to be a power imbalance." He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew my home life wasn't great. And less than 6 months into the relationship, he moved me in with him. Suddenly, I was over 2 hours from my family, my friends, my community, my home, without my own car. Then he started in on the social circle. He told me that someone from our friend group, I'll call him Al, had groomed a teenage girl online and assaulted her at a convention. He told me everyone who knew and said nothing was complicit. He told me all the people I thought were my friends were pedophile apologists, and like a fool, I cut them all off. But even after I'd stopped talking to these people, Charlie couldn't stop watching them. He cyber-stalked them constantly, digging to find new accounts, checking up on their lives. When I asked why he kept looking at people he claimed to hate, he told me he'd put them all in the hospital if he ever saw them again. That was the answer. That was always the answer. There was one person he targeted most obsessively. I'll call her Audrey. Charlie told me Audrey had been emotionally abusive to him during a brief relationship, that she'd mocked him, that nobody takes abuse against men seriously, that she was a terrible person. He recruited me to send her messages on his behalf. I did it. I'm not proud of it. Early in our relationship, he decided he wanted to pull a prank on her. He kept suggesting things that weren't pranks, slashing tires, damaging her car. I talked him down to something I thought was harmless, something I'd heard of kids doing at school, painting windows with milk so the smell would linger. I thought I was being clever. I wasn't. He drove me out to her house in the middle of the night. Rural area, pitch black. I was walking around in the dark, asking to go home, saying I didn't want to be part of it anymore. When a neighbor spotted us and we ran. We left without doing anything. He left the gallon of milk under the passenger seat of his car for weeks. Every time I brought it up, he shrugged. Oh yeah, I should throw that out. Eventually, it burst and soaked the car, and the smell stayed for weeks more. It felt like punishment for the plan not going the way he wanted. Then, weeks after we'd already moved in together, I found out what he'd actually done to Audrey. Before I was ever in the picture, he had destroyed an heirloom auto harp that belonged to her, smashed it to pieces, and carved the words, "Die ableist scum," into the back. I never condoned it. I didn't know until it was already done. When I tried to tell him it was wrong, there was simply no use. Arguing with Charlie was a process he seemed to enjoy, like he was watching to see how long I'd stay gentle before I gave up. He would scream, and if my face showed any fear, he would tell me I was being emotionally abusive. "I've never hit you. You have no reason to be afraid of me." He actually said that. And then he started comparing me to Audrey, pointing out the differences between us. How I was taller, looking up her social media to tell me she'd gained weight. All of this while knowing full well I was trying to recover from an eating disorder. The few times Audrey and I had actually spent time together, she'd been kind to me. His obsession with her was starting to make the story he'd told me impossible to believe. The night that finally broke through was about Missy's amp. Charlie became convinced that Missy had stolen a $300 guitar amplifier from him and that she'd given it to Audrey to use in her new band. His plan was to drive to one of their shows and walk on stage mid-set and take it back. He drove me 2 hours back to my hometown, with binoculars, to find the venue. We were there on the wrong Saturday. He screamed the entire drive home. He called his own mother an obscenity for not booking us a hotel room. I was afraid he was going to crash the car. And when the fear showed on my face, he turned it on me, told me I was being emotionally abusive, that he'd never hit me, that I had no reason to be scared. That was the night I knew the story about Audrey wasn't true. I just didn't know yet how much worse the truth actually was. I was still living with him, still trying to make sense of what was real. Gaslighting, the real kind, like the stage play the word comes from. He'd pretend not to hear me, then act as though I'd already been told things I hadn't. And around that time, strange things started happening with my phone and laptop. Windows opening on their own, the cursor moving, like something was being controlled remotely. Then, on my birthday, he had me involuntarily committed. After that, the infantilizing became constant, and he brought his whole family into it. For about a year, I genuinely doubted my own sanity. He started telling me the internet was bad for my mental health, that I should stay offline. He'd hover over me asking if I was okay, looking for signs that something was wrong, as though he were waiting for me to break. Meanwhile, I was having thoughts I didn't want to have. Thoughts like, I don't feel like I'm a willing participant in my own relationship. I think one day he might try to hurt me. The kind of thoughts you dismiss because you can't imagine believing them about someone you live with. My old friend Cole told me years later that in the rare moments she got to see me while I was with him, I behaved, her words, like a prisoner being taken out for a day in the sun. She was right. I just couldn't see it from inside it. I worked 2 part-time jobs after the commitment, sometimes 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, then walking to the second job for 3 to 9. I was exhausted, but the time outside the house and the small financial independence started to give me back something I'd almost lost. I started questioning him, standing up for myself, and that's when he decided to end it. He called my mom and left a voicemail screaming at her to come get her daughter. The one she'd, and I'll paraphrase this, the one she had damaged. He told his parents I was a danger to myself. He stayed at their house for 3 days. My mom didn't believe him. She drove 2 hours and brought me home. A few weeks later, his parents delivered my belongings in a trailer. There are things he took that I'll never get back. What I miss most is the cat. Shortly before the breakup, he told me something that still haunts me. He said that growing up in a rural town, when kids got bored, sometimes they'd find a stray cat to hurt. He said it like a memory. I try not to think about what happened to her. He deleted all his social media after the breakup. There was no explicit threat, just a very clear implication that I shouldn't speak about him. I wanted to move on. I tried. But over the years, there were things I couldn't explain. Times I thought I saw his car. All the valve caps gone from my tires. My partner's car broken into, and then mine, in a different location, within the same week. I had no proof, and for a long time, even the people closest to me told me I was being paranoid. Then came the mail. Last month on my birthday, I heard the mail carrier drop the delivery and drive away. Then the mailbox opened a second time. The hinge is loud. I know exactly what it sounds like. And then, right outside my window, his voice, the impression he used to do, mocking my mom. "You're so smart." I ran outside. Nobody. I checked my USPS delivery notifications. 4 pieces of mail had been stolen. Shortly after, the confirmation email disappeared from my inbox entirely. Not in the trash. Just gone. I reported the theft to USPS and my local sheriff's department. I was told that without camera footage, there's nothing they can do. No restraining order, no case. I contacted his parents. His father told me I was just hearing voices. Claimed I'd been institutionalized before I ever met Charlie, which is not true. Whether he's covering for his son or just believes the story his son told him about me, I can't say. But I know what I heard. I've since had security monitoring installed on my home. I set up a P.O. box and mail forwarding. I'm looking for a new therapist. I'm doing what I can. And then, not long after the mail theft, I was looking for something to watch to calm my mind. And I saw Eraserhead available to stream. Charlie had told me once, early in our relationship, that Audrey had insisted they have sex while it was playing. He said it like it was quirky. like a fond memory. It wasn't exactly a sexy movie, but now it turns me on. I watched it, start to finish, and I understood immediately. No one watches that film and calls it a fond memory. Everything I hadn't let myself fully believe. Why my friends stopped talking to me when I started dating him. Why he never stopped watching them. Why he compared me to her constantly. Why he would ask me to do specific things a specific way. Because I liked doing this with Audrey. It all landed at once. I reached out to a mutual friend to confirm what I now suspected. I was right. I'm 28 years old. It's been 10 years since I met Charlie. He's 32 now. And from everything I can tell, he is still doing this. I spent years doubting myself, questioning my own memory, my own perception, my own sanity. Because he built that doubt in me deliberately. From the very beginning, he found a lonely teenager who wanted to belong, and he shaped her, piece by piece, into someone he could use and control and discard. I was that person. I own the things I did, the call-out post, the messages I sent on his behalf. Those were my actions, even if they weren't my ideas, and I carry that. But I also know now that I was never crazy. I was never unstable. I was a young woman being systematically dismantled by someone who had practiced this. My mom believed me when no one else did. She picked me up and drove me home and didn't ask too many questions. She passed away a couple of years ago, and I miss her every single day. He chose my birthday to steal my mail. He said her voice outside my window. He knows I live alone now, and I think he wanted me to know he knows. If he ever comes near me again, it will be on camera. I've been alone with this story for a very long time. If you made it to the end of it, that means something to me. If any part of this felt familiar, the slow isolation, the self-doubt, the moment you realized the person you trusted had been constructing something around you, leave a comment. I read them. A like helps someone else who needs to hear this find it. And if you want to stay, subscribe, because stories like this one deserve to be heard.